Recording in progress.
Call to order the regular meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Lawrence.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Orr.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Woodall.
Here.
We stand for the pledge. Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's nothing to report out of closed session. Public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not allowed under the Malcolm-Brown Act. Items requiring council's actions not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. Would anyone like to address the council? Any hand raised? Anything else? Then we will close public presentations. The consent calendar. Does anyone any council member would like to remove an item?
I'd like to remove item number 2, please.
Okay, we will remove item number 2. Anyone else?
Same thing.
Yeah, nothing. It's already been removed. Okay. Then I will ask for a motion. Anyone in the public have anything they want to remove? Okay, then I will ask for a motion to approve items 1 and 3.
So moved.
You have a motion. Is there a second? Second. You have a motion and a second. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 2, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. This is our suspending the rental housing inspection program and direct staff to refund all registration and inspection fees. Page 11 in your packets. I guess I just was uncomfortable suspending this without a little bit more discussion and question and answer. This came before the council in 2024 in January, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it did. And the way that it was presented to us, I felt right then was that the earthquake had really highlighted the substandard housing issues that we had in Rio Dell, and also highlighted the amount of people that we had that were afraid to complain due to retaliation, and that it would not take very much staff time. So then I just was confused when I got the staff report, and it looks like it says the opposite of all those things. So I just was not sure if I was missing something and would rather this, have some discussion on this before we just suspend it.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. We do have our community development director, Mr. Caldwell, on Zoom available, so Kevin could unmute. And this is his agenda item.
Good evening, council members. This is Kevin Caldwell. I hope you can hear me.
Yep. Yes.
All right. The item on the agenda tonight is the suspension of the rental housing inspection program. When we did adopt this, and I believe it was 2024, at that time, we were actually experiencing a fairly significant number of complaints from tenants regarding living conditions in their rental housing properties. Since then, we've actually seen a decline in related complaints. And I think probably a lot of that has to do with the fact that a significant number of these rental properties were damaged as a result of the earthquake, and repairs were made to a lot of the properties. Back in 2024, also, we only had one code enforcement officer. So It really was based on the complaints at the time, the fact that we had one code enforcement officer. And since that time, we've actually had a decline, like I said, in the number of, at least the number of complaints that I receive. I'm not sure about the community services officers, if they've actually received fewer complaints, but we now actually have 2 CSOs to provide direct and pretty rapid response to complaints. As such, I also want to point out that out of the 400, and I believe it was 65 rental properties we have in the city, only 85 of those owners actually registered their properties. And one of the things that I think probably also had an impact on improving the rental housing conditions is the fact that we actually adopted this ordinance. And when we adopted it, I think it sent a message to those rental housing property owners that they need to step up their game and basically maintain what they have there. That and the fact that right now, as some of you may know, it is already the 7th cycle for the rental housing, or excuse me, for the housing element and the regional housing needs assessment work that needs to be done, which is a huge task by staff. It will consume a significant amount of my time, which leaves really little time to do rental housing inspections. I believe that since we do have 2 CSOs now, and we have experienced fewer complaints, that it should be really on a reactive basis. When we get a complaint, we respond to the complaint at that point. And that really was the way it has been for years prior to the rental housing inspection program. And that's why we're bringing this to the council's attention right now, is that because of those factors I just mentioned, we recommend that we actually suspend it. We don't want to repeal it, but we want to suspend it. Staff is recommending suspension, not repealing the ordinance itself. So it would still stay on the books. And if need be, we could reactivate it if we see a significant, and I mean significant amount of complaints in our rental housing that we have within the city. With that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure there are questions that the council has. And again, let me know those questions, and I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I'm a little hung up on the complaint thing, because I know that when I've talked to people in the community, there's a lot of places that were not necessarily red tagged in the earthquake, but that still have landlords who don't respond when something goes wrong. So I do think that we still have an issue. And also just going back to the number of people we talked to who were afraid to complain. I mean, that was kind of the basis of why we did this in the first place. And so the idea that we're receiving fewer complaints to me doesn't really make the kind of sense that my brain wants it to. My other question I will direct partially to Community Development Director Caldwell and partially to our lovely Chief of Police, Finney. Again, my original understanding of this, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, was that that our Community Development Director would kind of take the lead on the inspections for the rental housing inspection program, because the CSOs tend to focus on stuff like abandoned vehicles and solid waste and animal control, and I guess it's to oversimplify it, things that are outside the property. I've done a lot of ride-alongs with our various CSOs over the years, and not a single one of them has involved going inside, making sure there's no mold, making sure the windows aren't busted out, things like that. Making sure there's a kitchen sink and that it's just adequate living conditions. It's all been the trash on the outside and things like that. So I'm interested, I'm gonna toss it to Chief Finney on what your perception is of the roles of CSOs. I remember that Kevin was gonna spearhead it, and that at the time, Mary was the only one, would maybe go with him and they would do it together, not just have the CSOs do it on their own.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So my understanding of the initial program, even though I wasn't here for inception, was that it was existed to ensure that rental units meet the minimum health and safety standards, is habitable, and helps us identify substandard conditions based off of complaints. My understanding of the building inspector's breakdown is it's more formal, building, electrical, plumbing, structural, and habitability arena, and Kevin can correct me if I'm mistaken with that. But the original program was meant to be addressed by both the building inspector and the CSOs together. CSOs handle what's going on outside, they assist with photos, evidence, reports, assisting with posting notices, all that type of stuff, and can get the warrants to go in there and address the inspection of the interior, where the building inspector would deem violations or not. So I think there's two very different roles there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that CSOs have the training or experience or legal basis to be able to go into a house at this point, at least not with the training that we provide.
Right.
And say the electrical is not up to code, the building is not up to code, that's what we have building inspectors and fire inspectors for.
Yeah. Thank you. That my understanding was that the community development director would take the lead and maybe work in conjunction with a CSO or two. At the time, we only had one. And offer some training and stuff like that, with the intention that maybe the CSOs could at some point go out on their own, but it was never supposed to. My understanding was that it was never supposed to be, oh, the two CSOs do this. In my perception, they do stuff that is different than this. So I just wanted to confirm with you. The last thing I'm going to say, I would feel more comfortable suspending this at this moment if we had let the program run for, I don't know, 2 to 5 years and had data that said, we really don't need this anymore, that it takes up too much staff time, that we don't have a problem. I'm kind of uncomfortable personally suspending the program or voting to suspend the program when we actually don't know, because we haven't launched the program, we haven't done anything. So we don't know what's going on out there. If the program ran for a year, 2 years, 3 years, something like that, and the data showed, hey, we're doing good, we don't need this. I'm a data person, not, so I would feel more comfortable with that. But as it is now, I feel like it's all kind of conjecture, and that makes me not really want to vote to suspend it. But I've talked enough, that's me. So yeah. Thank you to everybody who has a question.
Yeah, my, I don't know if this thing on or not, but, my thought line is pretty much similar to Councilmember Carter. That one was the big concern, because I know we went into quite a lot of work to get this done.
Yeah.
And then we had the forms and all the codes and all the stuff put into that. But the people that weren't responding or coming and turning this in were not doing it because they were afraid of retaliation by the land. And some of them were, no running out, but remember, no hot water was one of them. I don't know if it was no water running, but it seemed like we put again, like Councilmember Carter said, we put a lot of work into this, and then as soon as it got started, we took the CSOs, and some of this concerns did concern me as to how much time I was going to give to the building inspector. How much to put this together for the 400 rentals in town, and set that up so that I don't know if it was a 3 or 5 year time span that we had, that we would actually go through the whole, initially one round of all of the rentals. And then we would come back and say, okay, we're going to do this self-regulation thing.
Yes.
And we'll see how the situation stood, whether or not we would have to go around, how often we would have to go back and address people with problems. And so, and I know I wasn't particularly into it at the time, because I do have a rental that my rental's up to code. And so I wasn't one you were looking at. I wasn't turning off my hot water to the neighbor and all that. So I thought it was kind of overkill, but I thought it was, well, if we do have this problem in town, we got to get that taken care of and address it. So I guess to sum that up, I'm kind of along the lines of what has just been said. That, do something to try to give it more than 9 months or a year to address it.
Yeah.
That's my.
Thank you, Councilmember Woodall. Yeah,
I've always been for it, and I thought when we did it, I liked the way we did it. It wasn't really hardcore. It gave people chances to get things fixed and to it would be less work as we got it started. It would be less work, and it isn't that people came in and fixed it. It's that it's for the people that are afraid to come in. I had a gentleman before I went on vacation that was telling me about some of the problems he was having with his rental. And I said, well, you need to, you know, I told him about the program, and I also told him, you know, that he needs to report it. And he's afraid to report it. His family is right now having some serious medical problems. They can't afford to move out. The gentleman won't fix it. So he's not going to report it because he's afraid to report it for repercussions. And I think there's probably a lot out there that are still that way. Maybe we had a lot of red tags during the earthquake and people fixed some stuff, but those red tags, nobody went into the house to check to see if it needed to be red tagged. They tagged it from the looks on the outside. So who knows what got fixed on the inside unless it absolutely had to but I think we need to give it a chance. I think it's a good program that can run well. And I think we need to give it a chance. I think we're throwing it aside way too early.
Councilmember Orr.
I was against it to begin with, and I'm still against it. I think suspending it is a great idea. We can't come in front of the people and say that it's working and we don't really need it, but hey, we're gonna keep charging for it anyway. We're not eradicating it from the books. It's still gonna be on there should we need it again. It just makes no sense that if we don't need it now to keep charging people for it. That's insane. So I'm absolutely for suspending it.
Thank you very much. And I think I look at it, I understand why it's there. I understand the need for it. I don't have a problem with it in the sense of having it. But what I actually see, well, from my perspective, I should say is, if we don't have anyone to enforce it, it's just like any other rule. If you're not enforcing it, it's a waste of time. It's just on the books, so we can say it's on the books, and we can say we have this. And so, you know, if we don't have the staff, there is no point at which a CSO can be a building inspector without a state license or some kind of construction license. You can't train them to know electrical unless you send them to electrical school or wherever, you know. And same with any other aspect, plumbing. You can't train the CSO to go in and inspect plumbing and have it be a valid inspection. So I guess my question then to Kevin is this enforceable? Can you, I don't have a problem with it being there in the sense of it being there, but again, if we don't have the personnel to go out and do it, if Kevin is gonna be, well, you can do, it's been on the books for a year. Had 85 people, I think, Kevin, you said, came in and paid the fee. And all those 85 have been inspected. What about the other 320?
None have been inspected. None have been inspected.
Okay, so I mean, so that's been, my point is it's on the books just to be on the books. There's no point in it being, I mean, it can be there, but I mean, and I'm not trying to convince anyone not to, I'm just trying to make common sense of, if we are not enforcing a rule, then the rule is absolutely useless in the way I see it. So, Kevin, is there, or do you have adequate time to do these inspections? Is that something we would have to contract out for? So then the city would have to hire someone to contract out to go do inspections? I mean, because we have to be realistic, right? If we can't do it, we can't do it. And so what's the point? So Kevin, can you, what do you got?
Mayor Garnes, if I may, originally this was going to be a team effort between myself and the CSO. The checklist itself is a fairly simple checklist, and we cannot force property owners to bring up their properties to current code. All we can do is force them to repair whatever's not correct. And a lot of the electrical issues have to do with, for example, you may not have a cover plate on your receptacle. That's a violation. You may not have your smoke alarm hooked up or the battery hooked up. That's a violation. They're really simple violations. It is a capacity issue when it comes down to it at the end. I could do it, but we would have to probably farm out the housing element update, which is just started. And I did get a quote from PlaceWorks, who helped us in the last cycle, the 6th cycle, and their quote was $88,000. So if the council would like to cut loose with $88,000, that would really relieve me of a lot of time on having to work on the housing element. And I could probably get 3, maybe 5 inspections done a week. But those guys that are signing up for the inspections, those are the guys with the properties, or the owners with the properties that probably comply, that there aren't any issues. It's the ones that don't sign up that we have to go back and we have to reach out again and again and maybe again. Those are the ones that are going to be the problematic properties. And again, I myself have not received the complaints that we received prior to the earthquakes. So it's up to the council. I mean, if the council decides that we want to enforce this rental housing inspection program, it'll cost money, whether I do it and we pay for the housing element update through PlaceWorks, or we farm it out to a third-party individual. Bottom line is going to cost more money. And as far as making complaints about the condition of your rental property, retribution is illegal in the state of California. And if you can prove, in fact, that there is retribution occurring, those property owners, those property managers could face legal consequences as well.
Thank you.
I still feel like I'm hearing the exact opposite of what I heard in 2024. So I'm thrown by that.
I can't see how it changed so much.
Yeah, I'm not sure when this changed and when it became massive amounts of staff time, when we were literally told that it was gonna be okay and it was handleable and it wasn't gonna be that big of a deal. And so that's where I'm stuck. I don't work at City Hall. I don't know what happens, but this is not the way that this was presented to us in 2024. It is exactly the opposite of how this was presented to us in 2024. So what do we do about that? I don't know, but
Kevin, did you know the housing element was coming up when we did all this?
Yes, I did. And I was hoping we could actually get a deal. Last cycle, the state actually paid PlaceWorks to prepare our housing element for us, to fine tune it for us. So it actually, nothing cost the city as far as updating that last housing element cycle. And things have changed since 2024. There have been a lot of improvements in the city. And I think that one of the things that just actually adopting the program itself, I think put the property managers, the property owners on notice that they better step up their game. And I think that they did because they saw this coming down the line. And that in itself is a big change, what happened. And I believe we started this actually in probably the late 2023, early 2024. So you're looking at least 2 years ago. And things do change. And I think if you look around, just driving through town, the city looks better than it did 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, whether it's on the outside of the buildings or the inside of the buildings. And there were some inspections on the interior of the buildings. When those inspections were done as a result of the earthquake, those folks who were home let the inspectors in. And as you remember, that's when some of those OES inspectors said, hey, you've got some substandard housing. So there were inspections on the inside. And that's really what really kind of kicked along this rental housing inspection program. But it's totally up to the council. I mean, if the council wants to move forward with it, just bear in mind it's going to cost some funds.
You know, and I'm back to, once again, this wasn't presented to us as, oh, if you move forward with this, we're gonna have to contract out a housing element thing. Like, this is coming up now at the very last minute with zero warning whatsoever. Like, that wasn't part of our decision-making process in the beginning. So it's tough for me to wrap my mind around why it's part of our decision-making process now. But that might just be a me thing. So I'm gonna hand it over to somebody else. It's fine.
It is hard to look through that crystal ball and figure out what's coming down the road. I agree 100%. Like I said, last time we went through the housing element cycle, we had a place where the state actually paid for it. This time we don't have that funding. So it's either I do it or we farm it out.
What I'm saying is that when this was presented in 2024, it wasn't like, oh, it's gonna take massive amounts of staff time and we're probably gonna have to contract out other things. It was, this will be no big deal. It'll be a little bit upfront, but hey, I got it, no problem. And then from there, it'll actually be less and less work and this won't be a huge drain. So, yeah, when we passed this, I wasn't thinking that I was gonna be in a position of choosing the program that we worked really, really hard for, or contracting out for almost $100,000 something else. So, you know, we're effectively backed into a corner at this point, and that doesn't feel great for me.
Well, what I would suggest at this point is that we actually continue this discussion to our next meeting. And I will present the checklist, the inspection checklist. And you can see that it's really not that technical. It's really based on observations that I can make, observations that CSO could make, observations that city council members could make. It either meets the criteria on the checklist or it doesn't.
Okay.
And so if the CSOs actually have time to help out, we could nail this thing down and move forward. It may not be at breakneck speed, but we could make progress on it.
I would like to continue it, but I'm one person, so.
Continue.
Okay.
Does the public like to make comments? Anyone? Any, emails or hands raised?
I just one thing, you said that the city's looking better, and I want to say that the outsides, when you drive around, the CSOs have been doing a good job. But I have no idea what they look like on the inside.
Yeah.
And the town, when you do drive around, like I said, they're doing a good job. But I have no idea what the insides look like.
I was just gonna say that I'm not normally the I told you so guy, but these are all the same arguments we made 2 years ago, year and a half ago, to not start this. Was the renters' rights against retaliation, the California Rental Code, all of this stuff. So I don't see what pushing it off for another 2 weeks is going to do. It's asinine to charge people for something that isn't needed, and wasn't needed to begin with. Like Kevin said, that the people that were going to follow the ordinance were the ones whose properties were up to code to begin with. The people who aren't going to follow it aren't going to follow it. So why are we punishing the people that are renting decent properties if we're not going to punish the ones who aren't?
Member Wilson.
Two questions. One, Kevin, you said only 85 or 80, whatever it was, people signed up for it. So this is an ordinance that you don't have to sign up for. If you so desire not to do, you just say, nope.
No, you actually do have to. I'm sorry. You do have to sign up for it. We sent out letters to all 400. I want to say it's 465 rental properties in the city. We sent out letters to every owner, every property manager, and telling them they had to register their property by a certain date. And we got very, very little response. I think Councilmember Orr is spot on when he says it's only the good actors that are responding. The bad actors are not responding. They did not register.
I don't feel like spending $100,000 a year to make this work. Or essentially what I'm being told now by the same person that told me this is what we needed to do. Now you need to do the opposite, she makes a good point. But
It feels weird.
it does, and it's all, maybe it's the fact that it's, I open up my packet and I see this in the discussion in no less the consent count.
Yeah.
If it had been in a regular portion of the agenda that we actually took the time and went through this, where you like, for say, you came in here and went through what some of the stuff was suggested that we look at and go ahead with that. But to just abruptly bring that to me when I was told, so I got it pretty adamantly that we needed to do this.
Yeah.
And we went through it. It wasn't just one meeting where we talked about it. We had the forms put together, and I remember going to people in town and talking to them about the form and taking them the form early. So this is what you're gonna end up with, because they have and they were probably another one of those people that's gonna be responsible, but then there's the irresponsible one. So I'm down the line of let's take this look and do as Councilmember Carter said, that we put it off. It won't be next month. Well, it is December. It'll be sometime in January, and I don't know if we want it the first, whenever, how we get it, set it in here and have a more solid recommendation and give you a chance to change my mind, but to abruptly suddenly come out of nowhere and again, I'm not the biggest fan of consent calendars to begin with, because somehow that's how things get buried away from the council, is you stuff it on in the consent calendar and it goes through here real quick. You have to pull it to look at it. Then we have to just do what we're doing right now. Well, we should probably just about have the meeting over with by now. And instead we're having to go through something that doesn't feel comfortable with all the effort that was put into it. So it takes a special motion. I would like to make a motion that we move this off into a future and not a long future agenda on the council meeting would be, that's, if I worded that right, that's my motion.
I'll second.
You got a second?
Yes.
Can I recommend an addition to the
Sure.
memorandum? That the council directs staff to return with some quotes for completing the 7th cycle housing element via a contractor. That housing element absolutely has to happen. It's a legal mandate. We can get a fair amount of trouble by not fulfilling that. I think while I do agree it is costly, it is something that is pretty fundamental to the operations of the city that needs to get done. And so, yeah, a couple of years ago, we got fully covered. Maybe this year we don't. And so we add them together, it's 50% covered in grant funding. But, I think there isn't really a question about the value of the rental housing inspection program, but from my perspective, there's a question about the staff time and availability to get the project done. And so irregardless of what happens with staffing on the city level, somebody could end up ill or other situations, we may end up needing to have a third-party consultant come in and complete the housing element no matter what we do. And so I would like to really consider that as included in your option to revisit this particular issue, but also have some quotes related to the 7th cycle housing element.
Well, that's what I thought the idea of extending this to a longer conversation in the agenda, in an agenda, that kind of stuff will be covered and they clear it, so we don't do something stupid. It appears, and this is just from Councilmember Wilson's perspective, we've already done something stupid. And I would prefer we don't do another thing that we're back here a year from now saying, let's reinstate and let's go down this path of doing this and that and the next thing. And if we're gonna already spend this 88,000 or 90,000, then we're gonna go ahead and do it. But this would give staff, we got along, depending what we do in the later part of the meeting here, whether or not we have another agenda, if we go off into January, the staff will have time to adequately vet this and present to the council so we can get it right and not hear about it again. But yes, I would accept what I believe I'm saying yes to what you said.
As the seconder of
So, motion,
goes.
second.
And so I do have one other, I got nothing in a second. I would also like to know, Kevin, because I don't remember if there's any fine, and you can bring this back, you know, so now. A fine, associated with not registering. So I want that to be in there.
I apologize for talking over you. There is no fine in the ordinance for not registering. It basically just is it's a paper tiger. We would have to send out letters and encourage them to register, as kind of like encouraging folks to get a business license. We have folks that have been doing business in town for a number of years that don't have business licenses. And it's just one of those things that we have to follow up on continually, which of course, when staff follows up on it, it's more money and staff time. You know, and one of the things I want to point out is that a lot of the impetus behind this rental housing inspection program was the fact that the Cal OES inspectors are the ones who actually brought it to staff's attention that we have a number of, at their words, substandard housing units in town. And it wasn't staff ourselves who actually determined this. It was from a third party group. And you know what that means, a number, I mean, they might have gone into maybe 100 homes in all as a result of the earthquakes. And a lot of these could have been, for all I know, they could have been owner occupied homes as well. And that's one of the things I think that a couple of the council members brought up when we adopted the ordinance, is it should probably apply to all properties in the city. If that's the case, we're looking at additional resources there as well. But it's whatever the council wants to do. Of course, I'm supportive of whatever the council directs.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We vote for the continuance. Okay,
I'm not this thing.
motion.
I'm sorry.
There we go. Motion carries 4-1 to continue this to a future time. Okay. City managers, thank you, Kevin, for being on the call. I know you're sick. City manager staff update, page 24 in our packets.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. So you have a handout from the police department that did not make it into the highlights for this evening's meeting. And then I also just want to specifically give a thank you to the police department and to the chief related to the item under notable cases in the police department report of an individual being arrested for criminal threats and vandalism. And the chief has been very active on this particular case, including securing a restraining order against this individual for events here at City Hall. So we appreciate that safety mentality and taking care of this particular situation for the city staff as this individual kind of appears to continue to kind of degrade. But with that, your staff report is on page 24. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, city manager. Councilmember Orr?
No question.
Councilmember Wilson?
Looking it over, but I don't, it doesn't look like I see anything pushing me right over. I'm gonna say no.
Okay, Councilmember Woodall, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I'm gonna ruin the trend. One cat and 2 dogs transported to Miranda's. That's only one cat. It's not too bad. I'd also like to say that I got a very nice phone call about our police department earlier today, and I won't go into detail, but one of my neighbors and very good friends was very impressed with our police department and how they walk the line between being authoritative and compassionate. And I thought that was just a really, really nice compliment, and probably kind of rare, so it made me feel proud. So I wanted to pass that along. And as usual, thank all the city staff. I know you guys don't have easy jobs. I make it hard for all of you, but no, I'm kidding. You all do a wonderful job, and we're lucky to have it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Are there any public comments?
I appreciate police department too.
And I do too. All right. All around. Great. Okay, then we will move on to special call items. Provide staff direction on adding parametric earthquake insurance. Page 29 in our packets. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. So back on August 28th of 2025, the board of directors for the Small Cities Organized Risk Effort, SCORE, which is our risk provider, received a presentation on the topic of parametric earthquake insurance. So SCORE is our joint powers authority, and your city manager sits on its board. At the request of SCORE, K2 Parametric Insurance Services was asked to provide a quote for jurisdictions requesting this, investigating this level of coverage. So there is a presentation attached to your agenda item from the group, and for Rio Dell, the proposal would be an annual cost of $13,730. For a maximum coverage of $500,000 of earthquake insurance. And SCORE has requested that the city respond and either accept or decline coverage by December 19th, 2025. So parametric earthquake insurance is a little bit different from a traditional insurance policy. It uses metrics based on ground shake and measurable events that are, data points and mathematics to determine coverage levels. The traditional insurance coverage would be, insuring a building or a specific piece of infrastructure, and the costs related to the specific damages to that infrastructure. However, it is extremely expensive, and almost nobody has, and the city does not have currently earthquake insurance coverage, and relies on disaster declarations under CDAA and the Federal Emergency Management Agency when it is a large enough event. So this is a relatively new approach, and so they've been able to do a lot of modeling globally in terms of identifying appropriate insurance rates and what that would, rates for this product and what the insurance can provide. So in the presentation handout, there is a couple of examples on page 36 that would describe what the coverage, if we had it prior to the December 22 earthquakes, would have provided. And so for just the initial December 22nd events, if we had this coverage level adopted, would have been $450,000 of cash, discretionary cash available to the city within 30 days. So some of the advantages of having that accessible to us is, well, the city is in good financial condition today, and at the time, cash flow issues were not a consideration in responding to the event. When we have major construction projects going on like today, it very much would be a question of concern, which is how to keep and maintain cash flow during an initial event. This funding can also be used at the discretion of the council. Because the December event was not federally declared, we did not have access to some of the resources that the federal government brings to bear, which primarily is individual assistance. So that would be, flexible assistance to victims of disaster. And so these funds, for example, could be used temporarily to cover cash flow issues until they're reimbursed through CDAA and FEMA. And then the proceeds could then be rolled into an unmet needs fund to provide earthquake relief to residents or to fill a gap when FEMA does not, when it is not a federally declared disaster. And FEMA's, and so there's a gap of funding that has to come from somewhere. During the 22 event, we were lucky in the sense that we had some great philanthropic support for the response and recovery, long-term recovery effort. We had tremendous support from the county of Humboldt, but those are not guarantees. Those were decisions that were made that easily could not have been made by those bodies. And so this would provide a level of flexibility that we do not currently have today in terms of both responding in the short term and then in the long-term recovery effort. Because some of the tools that we had in 22 are, questionable today. We're hearing about Arcade House Partnership, which ran our disaster case management services, having significant financial trouble. And if they weren't around to do that, that we'd have even more difficulty. So this is just an option. It is, staff is recommending it because I think that this would be in the long-term interests of the city to be able to respond to a disaster, particularly, significant disaster like in December. And just add an extra tool in our tool chest to respond to these type of events, given that the federal government is unlikely to respond unless it is a very significant event. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions that the council has related to parametric coverage and respond to the feedback.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall.
Oh, I went in and talked to Travis this afternoon because I didn't quite understand it. And he explained it to me, and I'm satisfied with that. And I think it's a good idea.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Would this get us out from needing a fiscal sponsor to feed money through when it's donated by charitable organizations? Because that was something that we did deal with quite a lot.
I think it would provide the city with resources to help channel those
It was one of the
donations.
really tough parts of that earthquake that I don't think anybody's really aware of is how hard it was.
Yeah.
Just because somebody donates money doesn't mean we just take an envelope of money and spread it out, right? It's complicated.
Yeah, at the same time, still $450,000 would come nowhere near
No.
but it would.
But it would have covered the porta potties,
Right.
I think that realistically, earthquakes don't just stop happening. I think it's not an if, it's a when, and hopefully it's not as bad as that, but you never can tell. I also think that the landscape of federal assistance in general is kind of shifting right now in a way that's making it even more unpredictable, especially in the state of California. So I think it's a good idea to add a tool to the tool chest.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Orr.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea too.
Councilmember Wilson?
This is only for the city, doesn't apply to private.
Correct.
Right.
But the proceeds, if an event were to occur, would be completely discretionary, under the discretion of the council.
Right, and I think it's a good idea as Councilmember Carmen said, at least it was paid for porta potties and maybe showers or something.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up footing the bill for ultimately most of that.
We did initially, but we were able to get reimbursement and at a 75% level through CDAA. And the state, because we were in compliance with various rules and regulations with the state of California, they did cover the other 25%. So all of those initial costs, the dumpsters, the initial response effort, I believe at this point has been 100% reimbursed. But again, the question is if we, go into an event with very little cash flow because we're paying contractors to do various work, or the budget landscape of the city changes in the future, this can provide that almost nearly, basically, essentially immediate liquidity that any organization would need to be able to respond to an event.
And the line is a good idea.
And I agree that it is a good idea. The last two things you said about liquidity, and I think that's really good. And I think that the fact that it could also be used at the council's discretion, whoever the council is at the time, to help just Joe Citizen, if that's what's needed and it's doable, then I think that that's also really a good thing to have an option for. So I'm absolutely in favor of it. Any public comments? Okay, then I would ask if there is a motion to authorize staff to add base level parametric. I have one more question. What's this light option? It's just that you have two options. I don't want the light option because I want the full option, but I just feel like that's a question I should know the answer to.
Sure, yeah, there's just a lower level.
So like 10,000 instead of 13,000.
Yeah, so if the number is just slightly too high, you
Yeah.
can go to a lower option. And again, on page 36, the payout under that option would be $350,000 as opposed to $450. And Travis is motioning to page 33. So, yeah, on page 33, you can see the payout table for based on shading intensity, what it would look like.
Right. It was just, I think it was more of a premium kind of a question. But anyway, okay, I just wanted to, that was a question I had forgotten. Okay, is there a motion to authorize staff to add base level parametric earthquake insurance?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion carries 5-0. Now we will move on to the possible cancellation of December 16, 2025 regular scheduled city council meeting. I have no questions, but I will.
No questions here.
I'll make a motion.
You have anything? Have a motion and a second.
Oh, look, I'm already lit.
All right.
Neat.
Motion carries 5-0. Right. Okay, now we move on to our final introduction and first reading by title only of ordinance number 419-2025, amending the city's sign regulations, chapter 17.30.30.320, chapter 17.25 to include a qualified combining zone Q and redesigning approximately 3,000 square feet from public facility. PF to industrial commercial IC with a qualified combining zone to limit future uses to freeway-oriented signs, billboards, and community-oriented billboards, page 43 in our packets. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Barnes, members of the council. I will go ahead and turn this over to our Community Development Director, who is available via Zoom.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Garnes, member of the council. As indicated, this is the first reading of ordinance number 419-2025. And as the mayor indicated, is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Rio Dell, amending the city sign regulation 17.30.320. And then chapter 17.25 to include a qualified combined zone and redesignating approximately 3,000 square feet from public facility to industrial commercial with that qualified combining zone. To limit future uses of that area to freeway-oriented billboards, The ordinance itself can be found on page 61 of your packet. A little bit of background on this. This was actually brought up by Wally Capini, who attended, I believe it was the meeting, second meeting in October, and asked that the item be put on the agenda for a discussion. At that point, he was representing, excuse me, the Rio Dell Chamber of Commerce, and they were looking to place a community-oriented billboard on the west side of Highway 101 leading into Rio Dell to basically advocate for the city of Rio Dell. Another bit of background information on this, the council may remember back in 2022 that we actually, at the direction of the council, issued an RFP, a request for proposals for up to 3 billboards on that west side of Highway 101, looking for vendors who would hopefully want to go in with a partnership with the city to actually generate some revenue with potential billboards over there. If you will, if you flip to page 63 of your packet, that is where the changes of the ordinance actually begin. And the first change at the bottom of the page is the definition of community-oriented billboards. It basically means a freeway-oriented sign billboard whose advertising display is restricted to promoting city-sponsored events, local businesses, public services, or general information regarding the city of Rio Dell and its surrounding community. This use type is typically managed or sponsored by a municipal or civic entity, such as the Chamber of Commerce. That would be the first change. The second change on page 64 is the qualified combining zone. Currently, the city has 2 existing combining zones, the design review combining zone and the plan development combining zone. And again, the qualified combining zone actually restricts the uses that were typically found in the principal zone. And then in this case would be the industrial commercial zone. So the industrial commercial zone with this qualified combining zone would only allow billboards on that property and none of the other multitude of uses that are allowed in the industrial commercial zone. It is a map designation, so it would be actually a designation of industrial commercial with a qualified combining, ICQ. And then if we go to page 66 of the packet there, one of the things that we're amending to is that right now, a total of 3 billboards are allowed on the east side of Highway 101 within the Humboldt Rio Dell Business Park. At the time that this ordinance was adopted, staff was not sure that the 2 existing billboards, the south entrance and north entrance, are actually legal billboards. They are, in fact, legal billboards. Right now, under the current regulations, billboards have to be a half mile from one another. That would basically preclude any billboards. So what we're recommending is that we actually amend the regulations so that we do get that 3rd billboard, and they would have to be spaced 1,000 feet apart, which would basically put them right between the middle of the 2 there. We did take this to the Planning Commission. There was at least one planning commissioner who felt that we should not be restricting the number of billboards allowed over at the Humboldt Rio Dell Business Park. I just wanted to make sure we got that in. There are no changes to the height, the sign sizes. Under the current regulations, they cannot exceed 480 square feet. That's 12 by 40. To put that in perspective, the LED billboard going into Eureka on the right-hand side, heading north by Pearson's and that gas station, that is a 10-foot by 20-foot LED billboard. So I just wanted to give you a little perspective on that. We are recommending some performance standards for LED billboards, and they are again found on page 66. Lighting for this actually is non-LED as well. Non-LED billboards shall be directed downward. In addition, LED billboards shall comply with the following. LED signs shall have an automatic brightness control, limiting nighttime brightness to a maximum of 0.3 foot candles above ambient lighting at night, per the International Dark Sky Association. And then this is actually a standard of the industry, the IES RP 39 standard. LED signs shall have a minimum display time of 10 seconds with a maximum transition time of 2 seconds. That means that basically you can only run an ad for 10 seconds And then 2 seconds, no more than 2 seconds, can be a blank screen. LED signage shall include full cutoff fixtures or visors along the top and the sides of the billboard to prevent light spill. Something that should be noted, and I believe most of the council members are aware of this, all highway, freeway-oriented billboards have to be approved by Caltrans as well. According to Caltrans rules and regulations, billboards are only allowed in either industrial or commercial zoning designations. And that's one of the reasons we're looking at rezoning that part of the wastewater treatment facility from public facility to industrial commercial with that qualified combining zone. There are some other amendments on page 67. One of them is that the pole themselves, the structure, shall be non-reflective earth tone finishes on the poles and the rear panels. That talks about maintenance, talks about community-oriented billboards, and the fact that they have to get a use permit from the Planning Commission, which is typical for all billboards, freeway-oriented billboards. The location on the west side, excuse me, the west side of the freeway, again, on the wastewater treatment disposal field, those billboards shall be located no closer than 400 feet to one another. Obviously, they cannot be located within the public right-of-way. And then no more than, as far again, this is on the west side of Highway 101, no more than one community, oriented billboard may be constructed or approved, and no more than 2 other ones commercial billboards, should the council decide to move that direction, shall be approved as well. On the west side, the maximum height of the billboards will be 25 feet above the existing grade. The signage of the billboard shall not exceed 200 square feet. Again, that's 10 by 20. Again, the point of reference would be that billboard going into Eureka. It's the same standards below as far as lighting, as far as the automatic brightness control, and then as far as the display time, and then the transition time itself. If you look at page 69 of your packet, you can see the approximate location of potentially up to 3 billboards on the city's wastewater disposal site. And again, this is a point of discussion, a talking point for the council. The council may want to just go with the one community-oriented billboard, but I want to remind the council back in 2022, at that time, the council directed us to solicit an RFP for up to 3 freeway-oriented billboards. And I think the intent at the time was to possibly and hopefully generate some revenue for the city. With that, excuse me, with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. If there are no questions, I suggest that we continue the item, which would be the second reading, approval and adoption of ordinance 419-2025 to your first meeting in January, which I believe is, I want to say January 6th off the top of my head. Again, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. One more thing I'd like to point out, if you flip back to page 57 of the packet, there are some illustrations, and these are examples only, of what the billboards might look like at the locations on the west side. The first one on page 57 is right near the intersection of Metropolitan Road and Highway 101, and that's Rio Dell. And I know we're not the friendly city, we're the warm-hearted city, but that's what the chat GPT came up with for me. The second one is a community-oriented billboard example. It says Experience Rio Dell, the Gables Motel, DJ's Burger Bar, Proper Wellness, River Access, Gateway to the Redwoods. That can be found on page 58 of your packet. Page 59 is actually an LED billboard, and it would actually have 2 display panels, each approximately 20 feet in width, 10 feet in height, 200 feet each. And then the last one on page 60 of your packet is the location of the 1,000 lineal feet between the 2 existing billboards, and that is on the parcel just south of Glenn White's property there. And that one again would be able to go 12 by, excuse me, I'm sorry, 12 by 40. Again, so with that, if there are any questions the council may have, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Community Development Director Caldwell. Normally I go last, but I'm so 1000%, which is not real, against 3 signs on the west side, and I just need to I need to say that right up front. Before any discussion, I'm good with community sign, but coming into Rio Dell is one of the most beautiful coming into a city in Humboldt County, maybe in California, I don't know. But crapping it up, in my opinion, with a bunch of signs is So I'm good with the community sign, but I am adamantly against any other signs on the west side. On the east side, I'm good with the ordinance. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Same, I'm all for the community sign on the way into town southbound, on the way northbound. Knock yourself out, by me. But yeah, that's like a Bob Ross area. Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, no questions. Great.
Councilmember Orr,
No question, no comment.
Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Woodall.
Yes, I agree, because when they were talking about those 3 signs, all I could see is, you ever driven into Las Vegas? It's signs all the way in. And, no, I'll agree with the Rio Dell sign, but, that would be it. The other side's fine.
Yep.
So what do we need to make that just a motion to say 1 sign on the west side, community oriented, and
No,
whatever?
I apologize, Mayor Garnes. Right now, we would just continue the second reading, the
Okay,
hearing to the next meeting in January. And it would be at that point that your council would make the recommendations to modify the recommendation, whether it be to eliminate the 2 additional signs on the west side and just leave one on the community-oriented billboard on the west side. But right now, it's just really the introduction, the first reading, and then the final motions would be made at that first meeting in January.
okay. Thank you for that. Any public comment?
I just had a question, I don't know if it was on the west.
You say your name.
Good evening, Jesse Jeffries. I had a question on the north side, I think might have got confused when he said it was a 25-foot height restriction. Is that with Caltrans or the city's ordinance? And was that on the west side or the heading north side?
Kevin, did you hear that question?
I did. The 25-foot height limit is on the west side of Highway 101. On the east side of Highway 101, which is the Humboldt Rio Dell Business Park, that height limit is 35 feet. And that's already existing on the books as we speak. There is no change to that.
Well, are there any hand raised or emails?
Yep.
Okay, then I will call for a motion to continue to the second reading of ordinance number 419-2025 to the first meeting of January 6th, 2026.
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Kevin. Now, council reports and communications. So, one thing, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, I have 2 things. I want to thank Sarah Rebeck in the Resource Center, the fire department, a whole handful of churches, and anybody else who was involved in the community Thanksgiving dinner 2 weekends ago. It was wonderful. A lot of people came out. I feel like they had a really good time. The food was really good from what I ate. And there was a lot of positive feedback on social media and stuff like that. And so it's the first year we've done that. And I think it was just a really, really wonderful community event. And thank you also to Mayor Garnes, who was there serving and dealing with the public while I hit the kitchen. So, but it was really, really wonderful. So I wanted to give a shout out to everybody involved with that.
I was second that one, because it was really.
It was really nice. People were very touched. And
over 250 meals were either served or given for takeaway.
yeah,
So it was really well attended.
And I mean, two kinds of pies and
Yeah.
rolls and really good turkey, really good.
And people actually talking, community members just talking and sitting around and laughing, and it was really, really
It
impressive.
was festive and it was heartwarming
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
appreciated that. So big thank you. My only other thing is the annual tree lighting and Christmas parade this Saturday. That's the 6th, I think. Yeah, from 5 to 6:30 p.m. It is over at the Resource Center at 506 Wildwood Avenue. I think it's really cool that Rio Dell has the very first Christmas celebratory events in this part of Humboldt County. So come on out before you get real tired of Christmas. That's it.
Councilman Rohr?
I don't have anything to report. I just had a comment, to see if there's somebody we can contact over at the business park, to deal with that situation before the Leaning Tower of Rio Dell was declared a World Heritage Site. Somebody's gonna get hurt over there in that scaffolding.
Yeah. Absolutely, I fully agree with
The
that.
north side of the business park over there. The scaffolding.
Glenn White's, yeah,
This
yeah, it's falling away.
state of the art building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councilmember Woodall? No, Councilmember Wilson?
What time was the thing?
It is 5 to 6:30. Usually the tree lighting itself is 5:30-ish, depending on when it's fully dark. But it's a whole open house. There's cookies. They usually have an ornament decorating station. Santa's there. It's cute.
Yeah, just a ton.
Yeah, it's cute.
Okay, all I have is, like everything else in December, the RCA was rescheduled and canceled. So it's gone until January and HWMA is off in, December anyway, so there's nothing there until January. So that's all. That's, I think, all I have.
And I have nothing, I'm not gonna be at the HTA meeting tomorrow, but I think I showed you, so I need to go. It's all good.
Right.
Yeah, so, I think I have nothing else. Again, I wanted to thank Sarah and the fire department and the churches here in town for putting on that.
And the school.
Oh my goodness, the school district, we were really in trouble with that. School district. So thank them and, for really good. I wish everyone to have a happy holiday season and, just enjoy your families, enjoy the season. Hopefully we'll get a little rain at least, because we need some rain, and hopefully we'll stay steady. No shaking. That's my dream. All right, you guys. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion second.
Guys.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. January 6th.
No, we didn't.